Hey everyone, Terranova Tech here, and I'm starting a new series here on YouTube where we're going to be building really cool tools using nothing but AI prompts and very little coding knowledge. The series is going to be good for anybody that is interested in learning how to code or coding a little bit currently, but looking to utilize AI in a better, more efficient way for coding. If you are currently coding and you're using ChatGPT to do it, copying and pasting, this is definitely the YouTube video for you. I'm going to show you the best and most effective ways of coding and using Copilot through GitHub inside of Visual Studio Code to absolutely ramp up your projects. Not only that, but you can utilize other tools and other AI products to create any tool you want. So for episode 1, I'm going to use AI to generate an idea for us to code today. Now, when choosing an app, it's important to understand what type of technologies you're going to be utilizing. If you've been a fan of this channel for a while, you know that I like using Kinter and web-based GUIs. I've also used PyAuto GUI and Pygame, but to keep it very simple, we're just going to make a web page. So let's just use ChatGPT to ask, give me an idea on a web page I can make that is centered around technology and networking. I kind of like this first one where it's like a Subnet Calculator or a CIDR netmax converter. Yeah, this one's pretty deep. It's very involved. But I like the Subnet Calculator as an idea. That's cool. So we're gonna take this idea and let's open up Visual Studio Code and we're going to create a new project. Open a folder, let's go to Documents. We'll create a new folder called Python. And in that folder, we will create Project 1. Select that folder. And we're going to create a new file in here. Trust the authors. And we're going to call this home.html. We're going to create a style.css. And we're going to create a script.js. Now we're going to come up to here and we're going to do manage Copilot, and it's going to have you log into a GitHub account. So make sure you have a GitHub account created already and you're signed in. Now, if you look down here, we have access to home.html, which is the current file. And if I click on script.js, now it can see that script.js file right here. And same with style.css. If we're working in multiple files at once, you can add context and select another file here. So if I want it to look at home.html and script.js, I can add that file here and then ask it a question. For now, it's going to generate most likely an HTML, CSS, and JavaScript file. So I'm just going to have it access to this blank home.html file. It doesn't really matter. And we're going to come back to this, and I'm just going to take a Subnet Calculator idea from ChatGPT, and we're going to ask Copilot simply create a Subnet Calculator where the user enters an IP, CIDR, get a subnet range, usable host, etc. I want this to be HTML web-based, and feel free to use JavaScript for the logic and CSS for styling. I've found if you don't specifically ask for like using JavaScript and CSS, sometimes it will, sometimes it won't. Sometimes it embeds the logic right into an HTML file, which is it's pretty useful sometimes. But if you're actually thinking about building this project out to be like quite good, you're going to want to separate those files. So have a little bit of foresight and just straight up ask it like this. Use JavaScript and CSS for styling, etc. Yep, so I haven't signed in yet, so let's sign in. So the first thing it's asking me to do is create a workspace. I'm going to hit rerun without because I've already created my files over here, but feel free to use a workspace if you'd like. It just creates the files that we created in the beginning for you already. So it's giving me a home.html file here. And you can see it's actually adding a little bit of CSS right into the HTML file, which I was a little worried about, but it's okay. Yeah, it also put a bunch of the logic in here too. So we're going to use this as an example. Now we have two ways of doing this. We can either copy and paste or we can add it to the file. Now you're going to want to use this apply to home.html button here, and let me show you why. Because it adds it to your editor over here, and also when you make changes to the file, which we'll do in a little bit, you'll see that it'll add directly to your IDE, and it's super nice. So let's take a look at this. We're going to keep the changes. Okay, now one thing with an HTML file is you could technically save this file and then open a web browser and type the file path of the HTML file in there, and it will run the file. But what I like to do is come to extensions and then look for live server. And I think it's this one right here. Yeah, 66.6 million. So go ahead and install that. Trust the publisher. And the reason I like live server over going to the file path is because it auto updates. So if you change one line of code on your file, it automatically updates the, without saving, it automatically updates the HTML file and therefore your view on it on a web browser. Okay, so we have live server downloaded finally. And so we can come over to this home.html file, and if you see in the bottom right here, you have this little go live button now. So when you click on that, what it does is it opens up your default web browser on port 5500. And there you go. So there's our subnet calculator. So if we add a IP address here, just use like whatever this one is, WAC24, and we calculate, then boom, we get a network address. Broadcast address is correct. Subnet mask, usable host range, it looks good. Number of hosts and total hosts. And then let's do like a WAC22 or something. Yeah, perfect. 1022. So this works great. Now this did a pretty good job first try. But what I like to do is let's make it a little bit more unique. So let's go back to here and say, actually, I want this to be a dark mode web page that looks sleek. Use dark greens and grays. So now we're changing the style. Obviously, if we were using a style.css file here, it would update we'd want to give it access to the style.css, but where it put it in the body of the HTML, we're just going to leave it for now, not to get too complicated. Later down the road, I'll show you how to separate those out into like more logical files. But for now, we're just playing around. So the idea is to get used to using Copilot integrated with the IDE and showing you a web page. So come up to here and we're going to add the changes to the file. So if I click on this, all right, so let's take a look with that change. There you go. So basically just did exactly what I told it to do. Now let's say you wanted to just change the name of the subnet calculator. Obviously you can ask Copilot to do it and it will, but when the file gets too large, what it'll do is it'll add that line of code, but then it'll scan through all of the file. So let's say you have like a 2000 line HTML file. Instead of that, you can just come right into the HTML file and find where the title is. And then we take a look, and there you go. Whoop, Tara's Subnet. All right, there you go. Tara's Subnet calculator. So there you go. I mean, it's pretty simple, as you can see. So think of an idea. I would recommend, just making a GitHub account if this is your first time doing it. Opening Visual Studio Code. Use an HTML file. You don't need any extensions like Python to download to get started with that. You just need the live server, or at least to type in the path of where the file lives up here, and make sure to include the file name like home.html. That's all you need. So we're going to wrap this up for now. We're going to get into some much deeper projects, much more complex projects, especially using Python GUI and maybe even Django. We're going to get into some really cool stuff that I have planned. But for now, if you're new to this, play with this. Let me know how it goes. Put comments in the comment section below if you have any questions, and I'll do my best to answer as many as I can. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.